Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Halva for the Heart, Dying and Grieving in Diaspora. And today's episode is going to really be all about that last part about diaspora and how we navigate living in diaspora and our relationship to homeland. In this episode, I had the great honor to interview Mina Sharif. Mina Sharif is an Afghan-Canadian writer and speaker who spent 15 years living and working in Kabul. She's the author of a brand new book, Your War, Our Lives, which I had the honor to read. It's a collection of short stories that brings heart, humor, and nuance to everyday life in Afghanistan during the international occupation. Through her work, Mina shares the quieter, more human sides of conflict and what it means to belong to more than one place at once. I highly recommend getting the book, Your War, Our Lives. It's really beautifully done. I know you think like, oh no, a book about the war in Afghanistan. It handles heavy topics in a light way. It feels easy to read. It also has you reflect a lot on your perception of Afghanistan and of Afghan people. Highly recommend getting the book. It comes out August 1st. I'll link to it in the show notes. Get a copy from her website, minasharif.com. You can also follow her on Instagram at Miss Mina Kabul. We talk about so many things in this conversation, and I can't wait for you to hear it. We speak a lot about how we navigate, as she says, belonging to more than one place at once. And also like owning the fact that like, yes, I am Iranian or I am Afghan, and you questioning that does not change the fact that I'm confident in my identity. And also like what it means, like what is our perception of what our culture is if we've only ever been in diaspora or from a diasporic lens, whether it's quote unquote authentic or real, or if it just is authentic and real because it is our experience. Mina has so many beautiful things to share that resonated with me as an Iranian, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's so nice to be with you. I've been
Yeah,
following your page and just enjoying it so much.
wonderful. I've been following you on like my personal account for years. So when I saw that you were like, I want to interview on podcast, I was like, oh my God, I just started one.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations. It's a space that needed to be filled. I'm glad you did it.
Mm,
I love
yeah,
it.
thank you. Thank you so much for like letting me read the book. I devoured it in like a day. I had to go back and be like, wait a minute, I have to like, go back and remember each, because all the stories kind of weave together so beautifully. And then when I was preparing for our conversation, I was like, wait, I should have like specific questions about specific stories.
I mean, this is the book hasn't launched yet, and I've shared it, but I've not had conversations about it. So
Oh,
you might be. I spoke to some girls in Afghanistan who are young girls who are not in school right now, and I gave it to them as well. And I had a little conversation with them. I'm really glad that that happened. But this is kind of the first time anyone's told me I read it, and
yeah.
it's huge for me. So thank you. Thank you. I had a little be still my heart moment.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into it because I have questions about like the choices you made. So I guess I want to start with like your story, introduce yourself, and like, are you an experienced writer? Because it felt so natural the way you wrote, but I don't know. I know more about like your activism background. I don't know about your writing
I
background.
mean, I like the what I hear in writing communities, which is like if you wrote something, you're a writer, you get to call yourself a writer. But if I were going by like the amount of practice or the amount of thought I've put into writing over life, I haven't touched it since high school. So this was my first time I'd always enjoyed it as a child, but I felt very much like an imposter deciding that I was going to put something on paper and actually put it out into the world. For me, I justified that by saying, no, well, I'm more of someone who wants to get a message out. So it helped me calm down about the actual, am I a writer? speech that I gave myself a few times. But on that note, I will tell you what my background is and what I have done. I am someone who was born in Afghanistan, and my family became refugees in Canada when I was very young. So I was about 4 when we finally reached Canada. And I grew up wanting to be in radio and TV, in production, and really not with Afghanistan as the forefront of anything. But sometimes circumstances just take you where you're supposed to be. And I ended up in Afghanistan despite having taken the radio route. I thought you had to study like global aid, big words like this, in order to end up, back in a country that's post-conflict or development or anything like that. But no, it was with radio background that I got there. I was working as a volunteer for radio stations that were run by women throughout Afghanistan. And it was meant to be a 6-month stay and kind of give me a taste of my background that I never thought I would actually get. But now I was getting.
Had you been there before, like visited?
No, it hadn't
Okay.
occurred to me that I'd ever see it in my lifetime, because I grew up with it having very intense conflict. And so when this opportunity came, and I really say the universe brought it, you don't even need that whole story, but I didn't expect it. This posting was brought to me for a volunteer position. I took it. To me, it sounded like an extended little holiday almost. Like 6 months is, wow, I'll get to experience it and I'll come back home and it'll be like it never happened, but I'll have known that I went there. And that's how I thought it was going to be. And instead, I stayed for 15 years, and I didn't want to come back. And I didn't come back, I would say, by choice even now. It was, again, circumstances outside of my control that brought me here, kind of re-refugeed, as we like to joke. And so while I was there, again, it was very much production, children's television. I produced a few seasons of the Afghan Sesame Street while I was there, and also original programming for children. I worked with a lot of orphanages. This is like the highlight wonderful words, but I also had a lot of time in offices in front of my laptop, like clicking away and working for on proposals and things like that to get those kind of things going. So, but it was my daily life that I fell in love with, and the daily life of Afghanistan is what I miss. I don't miss my job. I don't miss my specific friends. My friends are mostly not there anymore, so it's not them that I miss. It's the energy and the what simple things look like.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know if I live in Korea, and I've been living here almost 10 years now, 9 years about. And yeah, I also came for like a year, and now it's been 9 years. And you kind of just like, yeah, life here just feels different. And it's gotten to the point now where maybe it was probably different from you because you're from Afghanistan, but it's gotten to the point where, like, for me here at least, it feels like, okay, but I'm a guest here, and I will always be a guest here, and like this isn't home. And I have a lot of friends here who are like Korean diaspora kids who were born and raised abroad, and now they've come back to Korea, and like part of me always felt like, oh, I wish that could be me. Like I've never been to Iran, like I can't really go, and like that longing I feel, right, just to be on that land is just I can't put it into words, and I just always felt so jealous.
I appreciate you being so candid about that. It's like I understand that on so many levels. I mean, that's how I felt before I went. To be quite honest, that's how I feel now watching the tourists on YouTube. Like it's so much who we are, very literally who we are. Our ancestors walked that land. We could look at a patch of grass and imagine that our, great 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 grandmother sat there and picnicked, and for us not to be able to go, it's really heart-wrenching because it is something that we deserve to have. And being open about being jealous about it, like I'm all for that. I can't watch the videos. I just can't because I don't get to go.
It's infuriating. I get so angry at the tourism videos.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you made the decision to go, and I guess to stay, what was the reaction from the other Afghans, like in diaspora?
I don't know that they were open to me directly about how crazy they thought I was, but definitely I got a little bit of the you've done your time kind of comments that made me think that they were seeing this as a huge sacrifice on my part, which was not true. It was actually me feeding something in my heart for more and more, wanting more and more and more of this for myself. And they were seeing it more as a sacrifice on my part than it was. So it's not so much that they had opinions on it, they just didn't even see it for what it was. And I can understand that. Also, security was really kind of the conversation that everyone stuck to. It was suggesting I come back was easy because they were saying it under the word security. But it's like, okay, if it was secure, would you kind of still be pushing me to come home? Probably. It's the comfort of the West that a lot of times they were confused about me letting go.
Mm. Well, did you know any other Afghan, like diaspora kids who were living there like you were?
Oh, I know. I went alone for and my colleagues, we were volunteers in this organization, and nobody was of Afghan background. I met Afghan diaspora there, but not no one that I had known before, and
Mm.
most of them came uh, quite later. Afghan Germans came really early. I don't know where the I don't know what the tie is there, but a lot more Afghan Americans came in later years and um,
To live there? Like, was there
to
a
live
community?
slash work,
Mm.
work was so much a part of how anyone got there in the first place. So yeah, but then
Mm.
there was a lot of times it was the diaspora who considered themselves more as people who lived in Afghanistan. So let's say a work contract ended, they're the ones who were still living there while they waited for their next opportunity. I had done that too. I didn't see non-Afghans necessarily do that very
Mm.
often.
I
So
see.
they were working there versus us feeling more like we're living there, a
Right.
lot of us anyway.
Okay. I guess the big question I have is like, did it live up to your expectations? Like, I have so many thoughts of like, if I ever make it to Iran one day, I know I'm going to be disappointed. And like, how do I prepare myself for that grief of like, it's not what I expect it to be?
Well, I think about I compare myself to my mom in this, right? So my mom didn't end up going back. And, you know, even during that time where I was there and I was pushing and saying, come, you can stay here. You don't have to do anything. I'll get the tickets and they'll pick you up from the airport. It'll be so easy breezy. And she just didn't. And in later years, I kind of just thought about it and thought, like, she's afraid to be disappointed, and that's what it is. And it hadn't occurred to me because I went without expectation. I think that's why I outlasted a lot of people too. I watched people come, be really disheartened, and then leave. So it really rides on what you're expecting to begin with. And what you expect, if it's more just on I'm going to do my best, I'm going to treat people this way, it's more about what you're giving out, you're really going to have a fantastic experience because then it's not relying on anybody else to fulfill anything. And I think I went in with that. If anything, kind of, if I had an expectation, it was that I wouldn't be accepted. And, oh, I don't blame them for not liking me in advance. So then you end up like this, so happily surprised that people are so welcoming and caring. And a lot of times that I think I saw people have bad experiences, it was because their expectation was a specific kind of welcome and a specific kind of gratitude for them being there. And oh, you're welcome, I'm here, was a little bit of the air that some people gave off, and you can't have a good experience if that's what you're walking in with. But as for the country in itself, and don't get mad at me, but I've been to Iran.
Mm.
It will not disappoint you, promise, 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 promise.
No. Is it my mom also like she never went back and I like begged her to take me. I was like, I really, really want to go. And she was like, I just can't. Like things have changed because she left just before the revolution. So she never saw it
Ah, okay.
post-revolution. And she was like, I
Mm,
just can't. I just can't see what's happened to my country and I can't live with that. And like as an adult, I get it. But also
I get it.
like I
Yeah.
want like I wanted that
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
At the time, I also was kind of being pushy. You've got to see it. Come on, I'll take you to the school where you used to teach. I mean, I'm so excited as I'm saying these things, but in hindsight, yes, she's seeing the school, but she's also seeing the rubble next to it, and all the other memories she had, are not necessarily there. The people aren't there, and that was just overwhelming for her, I think, to face.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess my question is like, I partially because I mean in the Iranian community, like so much of what is passed down to us as diaspora kids as Iranian culture is a very
Mm.
specific, like narrow window of nostalgia, and it's not like the large breadth of Iranian culture. And so as an adult, I've had to like do my own research and learning. And so I'm
Really?
wondering, when you went there, did you like think like, I know what Afghan culture is, and what were you surprised by?
Oh, that's a great question. I think a lot of times what I've found in hindsight, again, a lot of this is like anything I feel about diaspora, a lot of it is like a couple of years of sitting in it after the fact, being like, okay, I was here and I was diaspora. Then I went to Afghanistan and called myself diaspora for so long that I didn't realize I was slipping out of being diaspora. So I've been an observer for quite a bit. And I think a lot of that, the rule list of what makes, what our culture is, a lot of it is imposed on us in selective ways by our families, sometimes just to keep us in line, like keep us doing what they want us to do and not do. And sometimes, like you said, it can be a little bit nostalgic, and sometimes it can be really harsh based on their own difficult experiences. And then as diaspora ourselves, sometimes we use it as an excuse to stay away. Like, here are all the reasons it doesn't work for me, because Afghan culture is A, B, C, D, and E, and that's not who I am. And you know what? I'm just not going to deal with that part of my identity. And it's such a huge, I think, cost to your future when you do that. But in the moment, it feels like the easy answer. The list of rules doesn't actually exist as to what being from anywhere is. There is no country in the world that doesn't have punks and rebels and all kinds of different belief systems. And it's just with all good intentions, sometimes we are painted as monoliths even by our own community, but it's mostly because they're far from it too. It's kind of like remembering where you grew up as a kid, and you haven't seen that house in 10 years. You're not going to remember it in a way that could relay it to somebody else, right? It's like those childhood memories are not going to come out as vivid and clear as if you like all got up and went to that old house and saw it together.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a part in your introduction that like I stopped and I was like, oh, I felt that. You said, if you're from the African diaspora, may this book reconnect you to a place both distant and deeply yours. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It felt so
The
like, why did you frame it as like the deeply yours part was so like, I've struggled so much of like whether or not I can claim this identity, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so much of what I wish I could just like tear out of my heart and put into all of the diasporas is just reaching that place where I know that it belongs to me. And it's not because of me going or because of finally learning the language properly or finally doing this or checking any box. It had always belonged to me. Nobody could take it away. I couldn't go uh, ask for a new background or identity. And we know that logically, but we don't allow ourselves to feel that ownership. And I really want that to shift, because once that does, we feel free. We feel the permission to say, okay, I may not like any of the rules that I've heard so far, but that doesn't make me not from Afghanistan or from Iran. I get to decide what that means. And then that kind of allows us to it creates that motivation to go and learn on our own, right? But you can't have that if you don't feel like it belongs to you. You're not going to find the incentive. But if I know that something belongs to me, I want to learn more about it, and I want to know exactly what I love about it. It's that sense of ownership, right? And as soon as you have it, it frees you to define it however you like. And I really want diaspora to understand there's nothing to earn. There's no earning that it belongs to you. It belongs to you by your bloodline, period.
Because I've had a lot have many experiences in my life where Iranians will tell me to like prove myself. Like I like recently, yeah, I think the most recent occasion was here in Korea. I went to like a Nowruz celebration, and then there's a small community of Iranians here who are recent immigrants from Iran.
Mhm.
And they look at me and they're like, who is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it was weird, like the way I had to prove myself is that they turned on some music and they're like, dance, let's see your dance moves.
Because you guys are fun. Well, okay. I mean, I had that conversation once where I was in the right mood for it too. Because somebody said to me, like, oh, I don't, where are you from? You're Western, you're not Afghan, or you're whatever else. You're not Afghan. You're not Afghan was what I heard. And I said, I want you to prove to me all the reasons that I'm not. List them for me. And he was really stumped, but I was like, tell me exactly why. And I want to know how deep that is. Is it my clothing? Because I mean, you're in jeans too. Does it all come down to I have an accent when I speak the language? Like, is that how it works? Because you're in a Western country now. And if that's how you know what I mean? Like there's it when you break it down where the exclusion is happening, it's always so silly and stupid. And so like let's just dare people to explain themselves. They're not the authority on it. They're not the authority on your identity at all. And if they feel that way, it's probably coming from a sense of their own lack of belonging in some other space or circle, or maybe even around you. When we cling to an identity as if it's something we get to police, that's not a good sign about where we're at with ourselves, right?
Mm,
We get that in Afghanistan too, but if you challenge it, people usually can kind of get back to logic and say, no, fair enough. You're from here too.
interesting. I've never like had the confidence to do that, but
Well, I grant you the
yeah.
authority because it's only going to continue if people can kind of sense that in you. If they sense the insecurity, it's something to play off of, based on they're projecting at the end of the day. I think that's what I'm trying to say. They're projecting themselves. And mostly I met people in Afghanistan who were doing the opposite and kind of reminding me that this was where I'm from too, asking me which province I'm from, telling me more about it, introducing me to things. And they gave it to me. They gave it back to me. And so why would I have someone telling me that, because I wear Western clothes that I don't get to be Afghan, or I have this incredibly thick accent when I speak that I'm not Afghan. You don't get to tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I think that's something a lot of us need to hear, that like we can take ownership and
Yeah,
like
and it doesn't have
defend
to be
it.
confrontational. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it does, like you really can say it without confrontation. It's a habit they're confronting you with more so than it is a feeling, right? Like they know you are, and it's just a little bit of almost like banter. It really is most of the time.
Mm, that's funny.
I know it's a mean banter, but it's
Yeah.
banter.
Yeah. It's hurtful and it stings, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're like insulting your entire existence. However, they don't mean it
Yeah.
as intensely as you think.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one time my sister and I went to a Persian market when I was back in California. And the cashier, the man behind the counter, his wife knew my mom.
Mhm.
And he recognized us and he like didn't know which one of us was which. And he just started talking to us in Farsi. And he was like, ah, Misha, the one who speaks Farsi, and Sarah, the one who doesn't. And
Oh,
she just like broke down in tears. And
poor.
I was like, why would you say that to someone?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the also too, I noticed that the sensitivity that we have with it, they can't comprehend it. They've only ever grown up around what they are, who they are, people that look like them, people that sound like them. They don't comprehend our experience. It's too different from them. And then what they end up receiving is just our sensitivity, right? And sometimes even our sensitivity is kind of insulting because we're irritated at the question. And so they're getting this energy from us that can be misinterpreted as like, who are you to question me? Who are you to,
Mm,
and so the tone ends up defining both sides incorrectly, when really they're not necessarily looking completely down on you, but because we're on the defensive about it to a degree, everything feels more insulting. And like, again, going back to the fact that yes, they directly insult, but it's not necessarily with like this deep-seated exclusion um, as their intention. It's sometimes just you're different than me, and I'm pointing that out because it's funny to me, it's crazy to me. Oh my gosh, you're from where I'm from, but you sound and look very different. Like that
Yeah.
that kind of thing sometimes is all it is.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, it's
just
funny. His wife had to come in and be like, like slapped him with the car side of the head and was like, they're only like, because my dad isn't Iranian, only my mom. And so she had to remind him, like, only their mom's Iranian and their mom died when Sarah was 15. Like, you don't,
oh.
like, come on, like, you
The
don't,
women will always come through.
right? Like, have some simple, like, just expand your concept of like why this
Yeah.
person, I guess that brings me to your story, what was it called? The Blue Velvet Dress.
Mhm.
Because that one in particular, I was like, well, I guess in general, I was surprised. The thing that surprised me most about your stories is that you speak about the diaspora experience, but you don't tell it from their point of view. You have characters who are diaspora kids, but
Yeah.
it's always like people in Afghanistan maybe judging them or interacting with them. And
Yeah.
that story in particular, I can't remember her name, the diaspora girl who grew up in the
Yeah. Zoe.
Zoe, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
The reason that was, I guess the reason for that is we know our experience as diaspora, right? So for me, I think we do need to talk about what's difficult about it, healing it amongst each other, amongst ourselves, claiming our space. But this was more about let me introduce you to Afghanistan, right? So if I introduce it from the diaspora perspective, then it really becomes like the diaspora wound in Afghanistan. But when you're in Afghanistan and the diaspora sort of comes, you can't make their wound the star of the situation. It's just not. Like, let's be just trying to be realistic about it. And I kind of sensed that how I was seen in Afghanistan helped me get to that point where I'm like, yes, but to you, I'm someone who had this super comfortable life, who had anything and everything. And here I am now living in a much more comfortable house than 90% of the population. And I was able to see it from that perspective and not necessarily put expectation beyond that in our first meeting. And then as I got to know people, we got to break those barriers a little bit. So in that story, it was like, yeah, presumably that's how that first impression is or how that looks. And I think that it's fair. I don't think that it's necessarily hugely judgmental considering the image that we have from within Afghanistan of the diaspora outside. And I think that would go for a lot of countries.
It was just interesting as I was reading it, because like Zoe's presumably the character that I should relate to, but reading it from the Afghan cousin, like the cousin in Afghanistan, her perspective, I like was like, Zoe is so unlikable.
But yeah, but is she though, right? Like she
Yeah.
wasn't mean or anything. So if that was the point, I kind and if, before anyone gets mad about like what a little ditz Zoe is, she's very much based on me. So it's all good.
I was
I was
wondering that.
like,
I was like,
look at the fabrics. I mean, there's one behind me because I'm still that girl. I'm still very much like enthralled and enchanted by Afghanistan. And when like if I mean Canada, if someone were to come here and kind of like all day long be talking about Tim Hortons and the Canadian beavers and moose and whatever, they would look crazy. And so there's an element of that when we go back. We look a little nuts, like in how we're receiving and absorbing. I'm sure it's endearing too, but it's also just it's very different because why would you be excited about something you have seen every day? I wore Afghan clothes all the time in Afghanistan, and some people found it really endearing, and some people thought it was just strange. Like, what? Why are you so obsessed? And I said, because this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So it's not to insult that experience, but it's to just kind of show the contrast of what it feels like to enter a world and what it feels like to, I don't know, see someone you expect to be like you, but they're in complete like heart eyes. Googly eyes or whatever else.
yeah, because at one point in the story, she talks about the girl in Afghanistan, she was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, my cousin won't shut up about how she's othered in America." Like, rolled her eyes, like. But like
Uh-huh.
that is a real experience, you know. And then at the end, she says, like, I don't know when I'll be able to come back, and I've never been in a place where I feel like I fit in. And I
Mm.
was wondering, do you feel like you fit in when you go back? And
Oh, I don't think I fit in anywhere.
yeah.
I don't think I fully fit in anywhere at all. But I mean, I don't even want to. Why do I want to be just like everybody else anywhere? In Canada, I am like the most Afghan person you ever met. And then in Afghanistan, I'm very open about like, oh, but I was raised in Canada. So I listened to boy bands growing up. I don't know this song. So it's okay to own all of it. And there's maybe a kick I get out of being different. It makes me feel secure in how different I am, because and then it takes away that pressure of trying to understand every detail of everything that's going on with everyone else. I came back and my high school friends don't make sense to me and vice versa anymore. The other diaspora didn't make sense to me anymore and vice versa, because the questions they were asking, I kind of, I guess, expected them to grow with me while I was gone, but that doesn't make sense. I was the only one there. And that's kind of another reason I felt like writing this was important, because I want you to have what I had. I want to pay it forward. I can't like telepathically give it to you, but I want you to you can't, if you can't go there, I want to give you those little details that I enjoyed
Mm.
through stories, not lectures.
So I'm wondering, like, why did you choose fiction short stories instead of just like a memoir of your time there?
Well, because first of all, I didn't want to center myself like, oh my God, another hero who went and dodged bullets. Like, I'm just not going to do it. It just felt too icky. I'd love to share my perspective in conversations, but there doesn't need to be a book about a diaspora who went back. And maybe one day, but like, that would be another overshadowing of people who were living with that war without choice. I went there by choice, right? So that was one reason. And number two, the sort of message of the the human everyday life side that I wanted to express. I don't think you can do that in like a lecture format or in a nonfiction, like, here are the facts about Afghanistan. Because then again, I'm speaking for people. I wanted to speak from my lens, but giving the stories that are not necessarily about me, but it's still me. These are things I saw and I noticed and felt and appreciated. So it's still like I have to take ownership for it, in that I'm not giving you facts. You're not learning about things. You're learning what I saw and experienced and felt strongly about.
So what gave you the idea to write like the story from the dog's perspective or the musical instruments? Because that was so cute. I
Oh, I'm
loved
so
it.
glad you liked it. I was actually pretty insecure about those two, because I really don't know what made me do it. It's just a memory of the street dogs just kind of popped up in my head. They're so significant in daily life there. Like, it's
Mm.
crazy to me that like we're not talking about the street dogs and go. They're not like a stray dog you might see somewhere in the West. They're just not. They have like a specific aura and personality to them, and that just it was just fun to write. And it also, with the inanimate objects and the animals, I think you can be a little more literal in your messaging, and it doesn't feel like someone's giving you life lesson lecture annoying boring. And I wanted to get messages across, and they come across differently when it's through an animal
Mm.
or a musical instrument.
I thought it was really cute. I thought it was really well done. And also, I guess with most of your stories, the blue velvet dress, I guess, kind of has like a happy ending, like the cousins connect and there's the, yeah, not quite resolution, but they bond. But I think most of
Mhm.
your stories, there isn't really, not even a happy ending. It's just kind of like an open-ended, like they're
Yeah,
still just sitting in the dilemma, or not necessarily even dilemma, just like
the
I'm,
resolution, like
yeah,
there's
there's
not a
no result. Yeah, there's no resolved feelings of like the one about like homesickness, even though you're back
resolution.
in the country. And I'm just wondering why you chose to do that. And I have an
Thank
idea,
love your
but
questions, by the way. Oh, but I was eating this up. So that is because I wanted to not speak for what happens in Afghanistan or say what should happen to people or what could happen to people. I had one motivation only, and that was to spark curiosity. So if you read a story about a certain like demographic or people and I don't give you an ending, my hope is that you'll wonder about the drivers who worked for these people, what happened to them. I want you to wonder. And I want you to be like kind of looking it up, one day coming across an Afghan writer who perhaps had that experience. Like maybe they were a cleaning lady in a guest house and you come across them. And I want that to be something that you're super interested in learning because this sparked your interest. So I really see myself as someone who, my hope anyway, is to sort of bridge that interest, not to give you a full anything. So if it's giving a little bit of a teaser, then that's kind of was the whole point.
yeah. Yeah, especially the other story that really stuck with me was asylum. Like at the end, you don't know if she's going to claim asylum or not. It's just
Yeah.
that, but I think that one in particularly stuck with, I mean, I think because coming from a diaspora experience,
Yeah.
the way I guess the story is that she's visiting the US and she's like considering claiming asylum. And she goes to visit this house of an Afghan family that's been in the US for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how she perceives their home. And at first it kind
Yeah.
of seems like quaint and like kind of cute that they have like these Afghan things on the walls and stuff like that. And by the end she's like, wait, this feels like a weird museum and
Yeah. Yeah.
not like actually what an
No,
Afghan home.
the whole story was formed from exactly that moment because I had that moment myself. I went to the US on a tour exactly like that, but for a movie that I was a part of, and the kids were getting tours of. It was the same thing. We were going to like embassies. We actually went to the Oscars. Also, it was a pretty intense tour. Part of that was visiting an Afghan family that invited us for dinner, which was lovely of them, first of all. And they were lovely people. And I wanted to make sure that that feeling was still there too. But I was seeing everything through the eyes because it was me and two young boys from Afghanistan. We came together from Kabul. And I sat in that house and I saw it through the eyes of someone who who I was. I was someone who had just arrived from Kabul. And it suddenly I looked at it so differently. It just felt like exactly that. It felt like a museum, like little bits. And even to be honest, that's how I feel like I live like that right now. I mean, I have this on my wall and I have a couple of pretty things here and there and I love it and I have a personal connection to it and I have a memory with it, sure. But ultimately that it's still that feeling of we're not really there. We're just trying to like cling to that feeling of something that reminds us of there. And it can be hard hitting, that feeling. Like, yes, we're in an Afghan house, but oh my gosh, we're not actually there. We're just kind of grabbing little bits and trying to make it feel like it. And yeah, that moment, I remember that moment very vividly because at first I was like, oh, look at all the Afghan stuff. And then like, it just kind of went, oh, and my feeling just suddenly turned to like, but this is sad. So that happened to me. And that's where it was from. So I just tried to imagine what it would feel like as someone who is super excited to stay for good and how overwhelming it might be to think like, but wait, is it that great here?
Mm. I think what really stuck with me was like my idea. I just like it hit me that like my only experience of like live Iranian spaces in homes that are in diaspora, and like I step into an Iranian home in diaspora, like not in Iran, and I'm like, oh yes, this is what Iranian culture feels like to me, and I'm like, wait, is that not like actually real?
I know it's tough because sometimes it's a feeling and sometimes it's just the little details, right? For example, in the story, she sees that they have a big framed photo of Buzkashi, right? you just don't do that in Afghanistan. You just don't put up a photo of something that's so like you don't put up I mean, maybe somebody has it. I had never seen it. It's just not common. But the carpet, like there are some things that do carry over and will give you this gorgeous sense of familiarity. Like you walk into an Afghan house, it's gonna have an Afghan carpet. Like it's just, it would be crazy. It wouldn't even be an Afghan house if it didn't have it. So that will just make you feel instantly at home. But the little nuances of what changes when you're recreating it versus when you're in it are hard to spot until you just have that I think that specific experience that the character had.
Yeah, it just got me thinking of like, I talked to like my Iranian friends who've been to Iran, and the things that they miss are things that I can't relate to, that are like not in terms of like spaces. Like I've home spaces is what I have experience with, but not public spaces. So they reminisce about like the bazaar or picnicking in the park or whatever. And like, I can't, like, I don't have any reference for that. And it was, I think it reminded me, especially, I went to, okay, so in the US, there is no Iranian embassy, like they don't have one, right? But there is one here in Korea, and I had to go there with my friend to pick up her passport. And I have never been in an Iranian like office space. And that was just like the weirdest. I mean, I walked in and there was a rug, which was bizarre.
Yeah, but I kind of love that. I love that. I love that for you, because that is something that is actually, that is a carried over piece. It's not a sort of recreation. You know what I mean? And a lot of times we are even a week out of being out of a country, our home becomes a kind of a local recreation because we're trying to reassemble things. And so it might lose that. But an office, you're dealing with the real deal. It's the same straight stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, it hit me that like, I've never been in an Iranian space that isn't like family. And like, you know what I mean? Like it was, yeah. And so I just think about like all the different contexts of that of Iranian culture that I don't have experience in.
Yeah. And like I know that feels, I mean, I also didn't grow up in it. So at the end of the day, you're never going to catch up to like what you didn't have. But I mean, leave room for that. I really do hope you get to see kind of the more exciting like bazaars and things like that. But I'm glad you had that experience, because it is a feeling more than it is the actual office itself, right? Like it's that feeling of seeing that carpet in there.
It was especially weird because the man behind the counter was Korean, and he spoke like perfect Farsi and like not a word of English. And so I had to like break out my Farsi.
I feel like that's a short story in itself that needs to be written. I'm waiting for it.
It was quite bizarre. Yeah. Yeah. It was so nice for me, I think, because I grew up like not really, I knew like one Afghan person in my school, but like I didn't know how similar our cultures were. Yeah, it's one of those things where like as an adult, I've had to learn that like, oh, I remember like distinctly watching the news one time and during, the war in Afghanistan, and I was like, wait a minute, I understand what that guy's saying. And I was like, why do I understand that guy? I had no idea.
We have a slower pace to speaking to that, and more, I think I'm oversimplifying here, but we're more like how it's written versus a more versus the way it's spoken in Iran. So you will recognize, I think, our language more so than sometimes we recognize yours. Sometimes it can be a little. When I went to Iran, it took me a good week before I was picking up things a little more regularly. And there were a lot of pauses. I was like, I know you think that I know what you said there. They just thought I was an Iranian diaspora for the most part anyway. So they were loving and hating me accordingly. So.
I just really like, I enjoyed reading it and being like, oh, I know what they're saying. It was nice.
Oh, I'm so glad.
There was only one word. I was like, I don't know what this means. And then you said it means watermelon. And I was like, oh, that's a completely different word than what we say for watermelon.
Oh, what do you guys say for watermelon? I need to know.
Hendune.
Oh, that's right. I've heard it. Like and yeah, and then there'll be certain words kind of randomly that are completely different, and then a lot of them will be similar. Yeah, I didn't remember that. But yeah, because I imagine a lot of English speakers who don't have any Farsi in knowledge, I tried to explain around it. So there's no random word that you don't get.
Yeah.
You'll figure out. You'll either know it or it'll be kind of summarized for
Yeah.
you.
I guess that's a good question. Like, who do you see reading this book? Like, who is it for?
Oh, originally it was just to get these people that I felt were forgotten out of my system. Like I had been on a lot of roundtables. No, I hadn't yet. I had been on conversations. Actually, all of these are written before the fall of Afghanistan. So I had been in a lot of conversations back specifically with Diaspora, but with some others asking me about Afghanistan. And I was so frustrated at the simplicity of the questions. I don't blame them at all, but they were so simple. And no one ever asked me about people. And were not, it was just not coming naturally out of anyone's mouth to ask me, what were some of the best people you met? Who are like some friends you didn't expect to make and make? And those are the kind of questions I wanted, and I wasn't getting them. So I just started writing it then. So I guess it was in response to people who were asking me, who have good intentions, want to know more, but don't think to ask, what does daily life look like? So it was often diaspora, but it was often Westerners too. It was just more people I thought like you care and you want to know, but you don't have access. That's kind of what I thought when I was writing it, like you have to care enough to want to know what a cleaning lady's life might have looked like. If you don't care enough about that, then I don't care enough to tell you. But if you do, then here's like a little tidbit. That's kind of where it was. Diaspora is very front and center, but definitely others as well.
I love that you include like discussion questions at the end, because if it really presents itself as like it could be a good book club book.
Thank you. I mean, it's a little presumptuous of me to do that, but also it was calming me down from that imposter syndrome of a writer. Remember when I said like, this is more like messages that I want to put out there. So then that helped me think of this whole entire thing as more of a like, almost like social commentary versus am I a writer or am I not a writer? So that kind of that's where that came from. I'm like, well, maybe it can get people talking. That can be my main goal.
I don't know if you've heard, there's a SWANA book club called Kitab Club that I'm part of online, and I've already suggested it. I'm like, hey guys.
Oh my God, that would be so exciting. I'd be happy to share it with members. I'd be so excited.
Maybe like a talk with an author,
Oh, that would be so fun. I love talking about the subjects. And that's, I guess, the whole point, right? No one was asking me about this stuff. They were like, what needs to happen to fix Afghanistan? I'm like, why are you asking me something like that? Like, why don't you ask me about what I lived, which was normal day-to-day stuff? You don't want to know about that? How do you not want to know about that? But so that's how we are where we are.
Yeah. So when did you leave Afghanistan?
It was 2019 when I got back in Canada.
Okay.
And then COVID happened. And then shortly after COVID, security went like it started to plummet. And so I never ended up making it back. But I did originally have a ticket to return. My exit was far less traumatic than anyone else's because it was just a matter of coming and different circumstances had me stay, which at the time I felt very sorry for myself. But in hindsight, I like very calmly got on a plane and came to visit Canada and thought I was going back, and I didn't. But I still kind of have some of the stuff. Like all of my belongings are still sitting there. I'm starting to forget what they looked like and what they were, which is good. But like sometimes I'll see a picture of an old dress that I had made at a tailor and miss it, or I'll see my old furniture and I'll miss it. But I mean, that they're just things.
I just like so distinctly remember that moment when the fall of Afghanistan, as you were said, like that was so like so much anger I felt watching that happen, and I can't even imagine how it was for you. And also like when Biden's presidency ended, I felt this like burning anger inside of me that like people were angry at him, rightfully angry at him for how he reacted to Gaza and the genocide there, but like no one was talking about how he totally fumbled Afghanistan. Like, why is that not your legacy? That should be it made me so mad. I just like,
Yeah. I mean, we're swept under the rug a lot. I think
yeah.
as a country, sometimes the understanding that Afghanistan doesn't really have a friend in the world is something that hit me long before August
Mm,
15th. So my expectations were very minimal. I mean, I remember a colleague asking me once, what if Taliban come back? And this was like, I don't know, 2013, 14, I guess, when that buzz started with Obama saying, we're going to leave and we're going to leave by this date. And like, that's what started getting like a little panic going again. So it was really Obama who got us started in that direction. As far as if anyone thinks we were fine under the Western occupation, let's not go there. But the point is, the worry had started for if Taliban come back. And she asked me that, and I had already lost any hope in any country genuinely caring about Afghanistan. So I remember answering her and saying, it's not about are they going to stay to help and take care of us. That's not why they're here, but they're here for their own protection. And I was saying to her, they still have a base in Germany from like world wars. They still have the spaces that they monitor in Korea. So if not for our benefit, they're going to stay here for their own benefit, because they can't let this place just go, be given to the Taliban. Like, that's a danger to them. So where I rest assured is that for their own sake, they're going to keep Taliban out of here. So that's how I like sat back and relaxed quite a bit, as far as completely worrying about the future. Now, in hindsight, it's like a couple thousand people who are not heavily armed. Why can't like 60 countries defeat them? Because there was much more to it, right? It wasn't that simple. But I thought I was resting with that simplicity, that it is not even for us, but to their own benefit to keep us, to keep Taliban out of here. And it just didn't turn out that way. But in the moment, I was very, very convinced that we had, if not for the right reasons, we did have some assurance that they wouldn't be back. I did not see it going that way. And as far as how I felt on August 15th, I couldn't tell you, and I don't even know if it's happened yet. Like, it didn't sink in. I had to look back in my phone one day, like years later, so 2023 or something. I was like, what was I doing on the day of? Because somebody asked me, like, how did you feel that day? And I'm like, you like scroll in your phone, and I was like already on Al Jazeera yelling about the Taliban, and I can't remember I can't remember it. It's a very big blur, and really just emergency response feeling, all the way up until it's just starting to calm down. That's
mm,
it.
yeah.
So there's never been a processing at all.
Mm. Yeah, that like survival, even when you're not there, like even from abroad, you're like in survival mode.
Yeah, and a lot of responsibility, like sense of responsibility for it's not survivor's guilt. I think that simplifies it, 'cause I don't feel guilty at all. I didn't bring myself here to make myself diaspora. I didn't bring myself here to make it unsafe for me to go back. Speaking up against Taliban means you can't go back because they monitor all of that. And I didn't do any of that to myself. All came with good intentions. It's not survivor guilt, but it's just like knowing from up close what it looks like to suffer there. You cannot just function, and it's impossible not to think about it on a regular basis. And then also too, I try to keep as much contact as possible, and so that refreshes it. Like I was mentioning to you, I talked to a girls writing club just a few days ago, and it like brings me back to being in Kabul, being in Afghanistan. It's not the healthiest thing to be like mentally in a whole other place. So the balancing is a challenge. But yeah, no, I don't think I've ever processed and moved on or
Mm.
anything.
So when I asked like who the book is for, how did it feel giving it to the group of Afghan girls like in Afghanistan, knowing that like this book isn't really for them?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that's my big litmus test, right? Like, it's like it's not about, oh, is it good writing? I'm never gonna ask anybody that question and not ready to ever do that. But it's more like, do you feel respected in this? Do you feel seen and heard, at least in some way? I know that it shouldn't be coming from a girl who grew up in the West, right? But I don't see it out there. I don't see it in English out there. I mean, we have great writers, but if you look into any of their backgrounds, none of them lived there during that 20 years. None of them could write about at least this era specifically without researching or asking somebody. A lot of our amazing writers are writing from a place of memory or a place of visit. And I know that I have something in my lived experience that will translate into what I share, little details, right? And so, yeah, I was excited for them to read it. I didn't know if it would resonate. And I was so pleased at what they picked up on, because I knew that going to be my most severe critics. So it was great. And I'm going to get more of that. I'm going to get if I'm graced with people reading it, I am going to get Afghans who are they've been disheartened by what's been written about Afghanistan. So I'd really like to get their feedback on how they feel or don't feel seen in this.
Yeah, the very first story kind of touches on that about the Sally, was that her name? The Western journalist, and how she, yeah, that relationship she has with the Afghan girl, where they don't meet in person, but they like share letters, and the girl doesn't know that Sally's like pities her. And
Yeah. Yeah.
she was so like, I knew where it was headed, but it was still so like heart-wrenching that this little girl was like, oh, I thought I had a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, or like just, yeah. Yeah. You grow up. There's a growing up process that happens in the realization of what people see you as, right? And I had that too. So there's a little of me in every element of all of these. And mine was one of those too, because I was oftentimes between the foreign organizations, or let's say the ones with who made the contracts and did whatever, and then the Afghan organizations that I worked for, and then the Afghan like teams. So I'm just kind of in between all these worlds. And yeah, when an Afghan looked down at me based on something on paper, right? Like she's from the West. What would she know? Da, da, da. I take that with a grain of salt. It's fair enough. I didn't grow up here. And then it did show me at how so many Westerners were looking at me. And I realized, like, this isn't just, oh, I'm a minority in the country where they've decided they're the majority, right? In an occupied country where they've decided they're the majority. It's not just that. You're literally in my country and still think of me as less than human. And you're on the land that I'm from. And it was something that I think I wouldn't have imagined until I actually experienced it. And I thought, wow, it's that bad. The dehumanization is not just like, oh, you've read headlines and so you have the wrong idea about us. It's more ingrained in you than I would have imagined before. And I think I saw eventually that even good intentions are still like coming from a root of really not thinking I'm equal to you. And that's where that story came from. Is like, well, did Sally have good intentions? She might have, and she might have not. But we have to give an opportunity. I wanted to give Sally an opportunity too. Like, 'cause she wasn't all bad,
Mm.
but where is she coming from?
I think the entire book is just like moral gray area. And it was like uncomfortable to read, but it just felt so real and so human.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's just, I don't know. Yeah, I would rather hear that than like, oh, it was like just this joy, and then it made me happy for 10 minutes and it was a beach read or whatever, you know? So
Well,
I'm glad.
it is written in a way, it does feel very light. Like I could see myself reading it as a
Oh,
beach read.
good. Read it on a beach too.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
just that
yeah.
like, yeah, it did like
I,
it
I,
left me with questions, like you said, like,
that's what I want. That's what
yeah.
I'm saying. Like, there are many books I've enjoyed and put down, and then I just didn't think of them again. So the most exciting thing I could imagine is that it made you have questions. Like, thank you. Thank you for that. very affirming as the first person who's ever spoken to me about it. So thank you.
Honored.
I am.
I think we can start wrapping things up. Is there anything else you wanted to like share? I guess, I mean, we haven't said the name of the book.
Oh, right. Okay, yes. The book is called, I have it here. Hold it up. Your War, Our Lives. And I really would love to mention that this was a collaboration with my friends at Art Lords, and they are artists, artists in exile as well, including artists that are in Afghanistan. And it was really special to me to have their reaction to the stories in art, and I think that's a really lovely element of this. It also was part of my like comforting myself, like, oh, it's more about social commentary. Also, the reader gets some art. So it was at the time just something that I thought like would liven the book. But I also love that it brings the concept of Afghanistan's culture being so art focused and art being so innate in all of us, that there's another element to this. It's not just writing, it's not just the art and culture that's mentioned in it, like music and whatever else, but it also like very visually gives you an idea of how art is woven into our stories, whether it's social commentary, responding to the world. We do that through art a lot in our part of the world.
The descriptions of each art piece, were those written by you or by the artist?
A little bit of both, but yeah, it's more in the artist's voice. Yeah. I let it be a little bit different than what we were saying. It's a little bit of a mix, but mostly the artist. I didn't. They kept asking me like what kind of art we wanted, what kind of look, and I said whatever you feel is what I'd love to see. And so
yeah, I love how different each of them is.
yeah, I love that too.
Yeah,
I love it because it was a matter of how the artist was responding to specific stories.
and it makes the book like collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that it belongs to so many people, and that's in that way.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think if we're nothing more you want to say, I think we're good to
No,
wrap
I'm
up.
just really grateful. Thank you so much. I mean, we sometimes it's difficult because we have like little like tip of the iceberg of so many intensely deep conversations, but these are all my favorite topics in the world. So thank you for letting me have even, that much of it. I really, really appreciate the healing and that courage that I got while I was in Afghanistan. I think I really fed off of the encouragement that I got while there. So when I meet people like you who didn't get that, but just you are deciding to claim it, you're making that decision. So, when we talked about in the beginning about how like you would like to find the courage to say like, you have it. It's just a matter of moments where it's tested, where you can say, hey, this moment is mine too. Because for you to even be owning your identity to this point where you want to speak about it, you want to have conversations about it, and you want to have, instead of shoving it away, you're running towards it. You're so ahead of what I think I was before I went to Afghanistan. And so I'm just trying to like say, even all of this time there taught me that I was already as Afghan as I needed to be to qualify, and I just want you guys to all know that that's always been the case for you too. And especially people like you who are deciding to own it with your voice. I think that's very inspiring to me.
That's really nice to hear, because there's always like a little voice in my head being like, you're trying to like make a business, quote unquote, off of this, like you're trying to profit off of an identity.
Yeah, okay. Well, on that note, I do have I'll send you a chapter of something I'm working on, and it does kind of play on that, like, because diaspora is a funny place to be, right? You're right. It can steer into that. It can steer into it's a feeling, right? That people get when they're around you, and the motivation is very evident. I can feel why you're doing this, why you speak, and you're not. And then some people are just profiting from it. And sometimes you can have both. And sometimes it steers into like icky just profit. you'll know if you've crossed over into that, you're good. You don't have anything to worry about. You'll know, and people will know. And I think people respond accordingly.
Mm, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for like all the work you've been doing. I mean, like I said, I've been following you for years, and I didn't know you were a fiction writer. That was such a
Did I? It's
a surprise. Yeah, it's been great. I can't wait to see. You said you're working on something new. I'm excited to see like what you come up with
Thank
next.
you. No, I mean, I sent that to like one person, but it's just you talked exactly about what it's about, and it's more of a young adult novel, and it's about an Afghan who is kind of doing. She's a teenager, so we give her some grace, but she is kind of like Afghan persona getting popular from this ethnic background kind of thing, and then a girl from Afghanistan moves to her school, and so it's the duel of the how Afghan are you in young adult drama. So
Oh, I love that.
let's see how that goes.
I love that. I can't wait to read that. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
Thank
I'll put all of your like contact and stuff in the description and encourage everyone to read the book, get the book. It comes out August 1st, right? You said?
Yeah, this Friday.
I'll try to get this episode out and published like hopefully tomorrow. So
Yeah,
people.
yeah, it's just that. It's just I made it August 1st because I'm kind of a little bit wanting to reclaim this whole anniversary energy, you know? And that's why I was saying I want to be in spaces and I want to talk. It doesn't mean I want to be in the spaces where they talk about us. I mean, if they're going to talk in a loop, they can go ahead. If they're not right, you know, it's fine. But it's like I want to reclaim the energy of what August means, at least if not for anyone else, at least for me, right?
Mm,
I've been on those anniversary shows for the last like 3 years, and I feel gross afterwards because they want you to play a victim. They want to look at you while you cry, and I don't want to do that anymore.
yeah. Yeah. Like you said, like you're reclaiming and you're being confident in your identity.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm taking all of you with me. All of you are going to be the most like Iranians and the most Afghans that anyone ever saw, and nobody can challenge it.
That's a great place to end. A good energy to have.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.